I'm doing a request today. I've been asked by a friend and fellow member of the Inland Northwest Growers Exchange to share my tips on rooting grapevines. So this one's for you, Kathy. So here are some of the cuttings that I took earlier this year, and my vines are still dormant. You want to take your cuttings when your vines are dormant, and they're going to look just like a bunch of dead sticks, just like this. Actually, a couple of mine are starting to get a little bit of leaf on them. I'll try to get in here so you can see. There's one budding leaf, and here's another. So some of them are starting to get leaves on. But the most important thing that you want when you're rooting grapevines is root. So don't worry if they look like a bunch of dead sticks. And like with anything, some will root and some won't. So don't be bothered by that. But I potted up a whole bunch here. I actually ran out of pots, so I had several likely candidates that I just put in a bucket of water here, and I will show you what you don't want. You do not want canes that are getting leaves like this before you get root. You want root before leaves. So it's important to take them when the vines are still dormant and it's still kind of cold outside, and don't bring them inside. Bringing them inside will trigger them to start putting on foliage, and you want to just let them sit in a cool place. You don't want them to, really freeze hard, because that, I think, is part of the problem that many people have with rooting grapevines. And since I discovered this, a lot more of my cuttings actually take root, and this is a good point that I actually haven't seen in other people's videos, and I'll pause and show you how I do my cuttings real quick. Okay, so here in the north, we're in zone 6A. You really can't tell when a plant is dormant what is dead or possibly dead and what is dormant until you start to get growth coming back again in the spring. So since the grapevines have to be rooted when their cuttings have to be taken when it's still dormant, then what I have started to do is realize that that what is at the end of a vine might be very frostbit and might be killed. So I usually will follow my cutting to where it connects to the vine, at the base of the vine. Then you'll see the joint, and I'll usually take it off right where it meets the main stalk. And instead of using, what's out here at the tip and, might be frostbit or killed, then I would take, maybe a foot, of what was closest to the main stalk. I'd cut it like right here, cut it in this area, and then, maybe 12 inches or so up. I'd use what's most likely to be alive closest to the main vine and use that to root, and discard this upper part that's probably, badly frostbit. So I think that, I used to just root everything I would get. I would ask people for their, prunings or whatever in the spring, and I'd have all different kinds of grapevines going on. And some people, when you do that, you can even post an ad on Craigslist, say in February, and say, if you're going to be pruning your grapevines, I'd love to have some of your cuttings. And people that say they bought a property and they, there's a grapevine there and they don't necessarily know what it is. They might be able to tell you if it's green or red or seedless or seeded. If they've been there long enough that it produced something, but a lot of people can't tell you. They don't know what they have. I know that these are hemorrhoids, and actually I've gotten to the point now with these where I'm actually removing some of the flower clusters, because like with many things, if you let them put on too much fruit, then you're going to get smaller, less desirable fruit. And last year, these just produced scads of grapes. So, but they were small. So this year, I'm going to, even prune a little more than that. I'm going to remove, clusters, maybe 50% of my clusters in favor of getting bigger and better clusters on the remaining half. So, but anyway, for your cuttings, make sure you take what's closest to the main stalk and maybe 12 inches of that. I used to root a whole bunch of them, and say like 50% would actually develop. And which I thought, that's pretty poor. But since I started, firstly, when you take your cutting, sometimes you can see kind of that green cambium layer. And if you see that, that's a really good sign of life, and you want to kind of make sure that you're, using the cuttings that, are most likely to go. So, anyway, I'll take a break and show you the ones that I've got from last year. Okay, so this is one of my little guys from last year that's coming back. And you can see it's really got its leaves and stuff already going on, and they've been in the greenhouse, so it has had kind of an advantage, and I protected them for the winter. But I'm pretty pleased with what I'm seeing, and I have about 6 or 8 of these still from last year, so I'll be planting them around the property. I have some that I did go ahead and plant last fall that are the same age, and they've been outside all winter, and they appear to be coming back just fine too. They're pretty cold hardy. If you just get them in the ground and get them established, then you shouldn't have any problem. But as far as rooting those cuttings, doing what you can to make sure that you've got a live cutting that you're starting with, it will definitely improve your odds. And so look for that, like I said, that green cambium layer, and cut your vines close to the main stalk, and use the choicest pieces, and don't worry if you discard some of them that might have grown, because those tips are just here in the north, they're most likely to be frostbit and probably just not worth the trouble. And but you too can have free grapevines and all different types of grapevines. Keep your eyes open. If you notice people around you that have nice grapes, ask them what they have, and if you can maybe have some of their prunings. Everybody pretty much prunes their grapevines back, when the cold weather comes or early in the season. So the availability of cuttings is, they're out there, but you just have to ask people and be forward enough to, not be afraid to ask. Because odds are they're just going to throw them in a compost heap or garbage anyway. So you could have beautiful grapes all over your property in any kind that you want. So I hope this encourages you guys to try something new. And I hope that this advice helps you too, Kathy. Thanks.